everyone, this is Faye here from Twilight Crafts, and I thought I'd do just a really quick walkthrough of some of the different properties between the different types of inks. So we often get asked about the differences between distress inks, distress oxides, and then, for example, other inks like the Ranger Archival inks and inks like Versafine and even Memento, a different type of ink. So the first thing to share is something that I've just acquired, which is a little lovely storage tin for my mini archivals. I love the fact that these little inks are perfect for taking to crops, and this little box keeps them all in one place. For my distress inks, I do keep a little foam pad on the back of the inks, and I have just labelled them all up. I did have little hand typed titles here, but I've actually got colour coordinated labels, which I kind of love there on the side of the ink, so I can access them and get the colours that I need. And then the distress oxides are actually my favourite. They seem to have more of a chalky consistency. I tend to use my ink blending tools for those. So I've got the rainbow blending tools, which we stock at Twilight Crafts, and I tend to just use these, and I use the box to take off some of the ink from the blending tool before I apply it to my projects. So distress inks and distress oxides both react with water, and they give some lovely effects. The distress oxides have a more chalky, more opaque property. The distress inks more translucent. They just do different things. I love them both, but more recently I've been going to the distress oxides. I tend to use versafine for very fine stamps. So if you've got quite detailed stamps like these beautiful ones from Tim Holt, Stampers Anonymous, the versafine is really good for picking up really careful detail, but it does react with water. So if I am stamping any image that I'm going to be using watercolor pens with, for example, I do use Memento because it doesn't bleed. Versafine, you find a lovely crisp image, but it does react with water, so it's not great for adding watercolors. If you're using coloring pencils, then Versafine works really well. So that's the difference between those. The archivals, these distress ink colours, so they're Tim Holtz distress inks from Ranger. They are lovely little inks. The lid comes off completely, so you can turn them and dab them directly onto your stamp. They are acid free, they're permanent, and they're waterproof. So if you do want to stamp in a colour and then add watercolors, so I often use my watercolor brushes for coloring in stamps, then the archival inks are a good one to choose. If you stamp in distress ink, like the name suggests, you get quite a kind of distressed effect. So I will show you here. This is one of my favorite stamps for creating backgrounds, and I often do use distress inks because I kind of like the very distressed effect they give. So I will show you really quickly. So this is Spiced Marmalade, and it gives more of a kind of mottled, distressed, unfinished kind of look, and it doesn't give you that crisp printed image, but actually that's sometimes what you're looking for. So that is how it looks in distress ink, and you can see that it is really quite a mottled effect, but I really like that. And it will react with water, so you can drop water droplets on it. You could smudge aspects of it to make it look even more distressed. You could go back in over the top with some oxides, and you could add some distressed kind of tones with an oxide, or with, so I've got the carved pumpkin oxide, and you could just, and again I just take some of that off the lid. You could add some extra colour with some of the distress inks over the top, and again, because that's going to react with water, you could just add some water droplets. So I kind of like getting droplets of water into my hand. This is the bleaching technique, flicking that onto your paper, and then you can just lift and roll some of that off, and it will take some of the ink off. Good to use quite a high quality. This is just a printer paper just for this demo, but I tend to use the 300 GSM smooth white cardstock that we stock in the Twilight shop, because it does hold a lot of mediums and a lot of water, for example, and gives it holds out to a lot of textures and moisture. So that is the distress ink, and then how to use some of the oxides to layer up. I would add lots more layers to that if we had a bit more time. And then with the Archival, so it is waterproof. It won't react with water. So you can go in and colour with your watercolour pens. And I'll just show you here how it comes out. So that one probably wasn't inked up enough. I didn't give it enough. This is a new little ink pad. I haven't used this yet, but it does pick out the detail quite nicely. I wonder, that's got a bit of that. Let's get a clean sheet of paper to be able to show a little bit better. I sometimes like to use a kind of pad, one of those stamping pads that tend to just give a little bit more cushion to the stamping. I do like using my Tim Holtz stamping platform as well, I must admit, to stamp, but I do let it rest, let it soak a little bit, and then you can see, so it does pick up the detail in those stamps beautifully. And because it is waterproof, you can go back in, you could watercolor it. So I would take some of my watercolor pens once it's really dried, and I would probably pick out some of the elements here. So that sort of talks you through in a very quick way the difference between the Archival inks, the distress inks, the distress oxides, and even the versafine, and the difference between versafine and memento. So I use memento black ink if I want to stamp and I want it to be waterproof and not react with water. If I'm not using water, I just love versafine because of the way it picks up the detail in stamped images, and as it says, captures fine details like no other, because it is just brilliant. So thank you for joining me. At the bottom right hand side of the screen you can see our subscribe button. We would love you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can capture any other videos we do in the future. Thanks for stopping by.